Tzolk'in is a beautiful game that has a very unique component, a turning Mayan calendar as the central feature of the game board. This piece comes unpainted in the box, but many who own the game have painted the gear-shaped calendar and the surrounding gears with stunning results. I am lucky enough to be married to a talented painter who has made my copy of this game very beautiful. This worker placement game takes place over 26 rounds, which are counted by the turning of the central gear, which then moves all of the other gears on the board as well. The components of this game are top quality and very sturdy. After setting up the game board, each player receives a player board, 3 workers, and 4 starting wealth tiles. Players choose 2 of these tiles and begin the game with the benefits they allow. These benefits could be food, resources, advancement along one of the 4 technology tracks, or a climb up one of the god temples. If there are less than 4 players, then you must set out 6 markers from each of the unused players' supplies. Use the smaller markers because, well, they're shorter than your workers and they'll stay out of your way. They are placed onto the gears according to special placement rules to block some action spaces that would otherwise be available. On every turn, you must either place your workers onto the gear spaces or remove them from the spaces, which then allows you to perform that action. You cannot do both placing and retrieving of workers on the same turn, nor are you allowed to skip these actions. When placing workers, you must place them onto the lowest unoccupied space available on the gear of your choice. Placing in the first spot is free. Placing on a higher spot costs a number of corn tokens, which is shown here. Placing multiple workers also costs you extra corn, according to this table shown on your player board. Placing only 1 worker costs nothing. Placing 2 workers costs 1 corn. Placing 3 workers costs 3 corn, and so on. When you pick up your workers, you are allowed to perform the action for the location the worker is currently at, although you may choose to not perform that action if you wish. The more turns that the worker stays on the gear, generally the better the action. The action spaces on the palenque gear allow you to gather food and wood resources. The action spaces on the X-shilling gear allow you to gather wood, stone, gold, corn, or one of these mystifying crystal skulls. The action spaces on the Tikal gear allow you to advance up 1 or more of the technology tracks, construct buildings or monuments, or allow you to climb up one of the steps of the temples. The action spaces on the Uxmal gear allow you to exchange resources with the bank, gain new workers, and use corn as payment for actions instead of using resources. And finally, the Chichen Itza gear allows you to place crystal skulls in exchange for advancement up the temple steps, victory points, and resources. Now, when performing some of these actions, you must be able to pay for them with resources. These buildings cannot be constructed unless you have a worker at the proper location and you also have the resources to pay for construction. This building costs 2 wood tokens to build, this one costs 1 wood and 2 stone, and this one costs 1 gold and 1 stone. Each building gives you either a one-time bonus immediately, such as resources, advancing along a technology track, or stepping up on a temple, or lasting bonuses such as food from these farms which continue throughout the game. Monuments have a much higher construction cost, but the benefits can be far greater as they can give you extra victory points at the end of the game. The technology tracks have ongoing benefits as you play the game. The agriculture track increases your food production. The resource track increases your ability to gather wood, stone, and gold. The architecture track gives bonuses when you construct buildings. And the theology track gives you benefits to climbing the temple steps. There are 3 temples on the board. As you climb the steps of the temples, you may get resources on food days and victory points during the scoring rounds. The highest player up the steps also gains extra bonus points. A round is complete once each player has added or removed workers. At the end of each round, the main gear is advanced counterclockwise to the next day, and a corn token is placed upon the gear here. Corn continues to accumulate on the main gear as the days pass. If you place a worker on the starting player space, Then at the end of that same round, you take back your worker and you collect all the corn tokens that have accumulated on the main gear up to this point. Take the starting player marker for yourself, but if you already have the marker in your possession, then pass it to the player on your left. Then you have the option to advance the main gear 2 days instead of 1 day. This move can really screw people up and thwart their plans. If you advance the calendar 2 days, turn your player board from the light side to the dark side. You are not allowed to move the gear ahead 2 days if it pushes a worker off a gear or if your player board is already turned to the dark side. If you manage to get a worker to the top of any temple, then you get the privilege of turning your player board from the dark side back to the light side once again. At 4 times during the game, you must feed your workers. Food days are marked on the wheel at these points. Each worker in your group requires 2 corn. Any workers that you can't feed cost you 3 victory points each, so don't starve your poor worker dudes. These 2 food days at the 1/4 and 3/4 points give you resource bonuses depending on where you stand on the temple steps. These 2 food days at the halfway point and the last day mark the ends of the 2 ages of the game. On these days, you will receive victory points depending on which step you occupy on the temples. The highest player on each temple also receives these bonus points at the end of the first age and these bonus points at the end of the second age. The end of the second age is the end of the game. The main gear has made 1 complete revolution. Now convert your resource cubes into corn according to this chart. Each corn token is worth 1/4 of a victory point. Crystal skulls still in your possession are worth 3 victory points, and monuments score the points according to the conditions printed on them. The most victory points wins the game. It takes an entire game to really learn the rules because there are a lot of them, and I certainly haven't explained them all to you here. BoardGameGeek.com user citilogic made these wonderful player aids, and I suggest printing them out for everyone because they really help new players. I think it is worth trying this unique and beautiful game. There are a lot of difficult decisions to make, and there are multiple paths to victory. The path you choose may not be the same each time, but it will be a very enjoyable 90-minute experience.